Jacqueline, thank you for sitting with me this afternoon because, you are an amazing resource and you've helped many, many people achieve and get to their better selves. So what I'm most interested, though, in learning about and so that we can better share your resources with the world is what are your passions and your drives and your aspirations and goals. And because at the end of the day, I'd love to be able to match you up with leaders and executives who are looking for the type of help and services that you provide. And so to get at that, I want to have you tell me your story. You can start wherever you like. You can start with your education and why you pursued a particular educational path that you did and bring me up to today. Or you can go back earlier than that. Maybe sometime in your youth, you realized that you had something special. And you got on that path and you stayed on it. Or you can go back as early as conception. To the extent it's relevant, there was some sense of purpose. So wherever you like to start, just start there. And I'm going to just listen and take a few notes. And if I need clarity, I'll stop you. But tell us your story, Jacqueline.
Well, I think I like to say it started at the age of 9 on the steps of my tenement building. People and kids usually saying to me, "What do you think? What do you think?" So I like to say I started my motivational career at that point. Now, I grew up in poverty, and I grew up in a very hard-scrabble neighborhood where there was a lot of alcoholism, there was a lot of violence. I lived by the docks. We saw the sailors and the prostitutes, and they all paraded by in my growing up. And so the kids in my neighborhood really had a bit of a tough time, including myself. I grew up in a family where there was tremendous chaos, tremendous uncertainty and fear. And somehow my wisdom shone through. And I never quite understood it, but I always wanted to be a teacher. And so you play schools when you're a kid. It's like, who's going to be the teacher, who's going to be a student? Well, I never want to be the student, except, we had to exchange roles. But the teacher idea really appealed to me. And I left school at 15. So, really the prospects weren't very good. In fact, when I left school, they said to me, "You'd make a very good telephonist." Now, very few people know this, but they said, "You make a very good telephonist." Well, what is that? It's a telephone operator. Because they said, "You have a very nice voice." Well, of course, now I use my voice in my phone coaching sessions and to speak, because it is my joy and passion. Because I've always been good about wanting to help other people understand what motivates them, where they get stuck in stuff. And for years I would give advice just because it was me. Until finally one day I said, maybe I should get in this game of figuring out how to help people for real. Really get into it. So the lifetime history is very involved. We could spend more than we actually have time for today, but essentially I learned fear at a very early age. And I decided at the age of 54, when I started doing this business, that I wanted to teach people how to move beyond it, because I had done it. I've had over 30 years of personal development experience, and I like to say I have a PhD in life skills. And it's we learn life through experience. And I share my experiences now and my insights, because I've been an astute student of human behavior since I was very small. And there are very few things that have gone by me that I didn't get. I didn't have to understand, that I did get to understand. So, I like to say there's a lot of experiences in life that I've lived through them, come out the other side. And that's really the foundation for the work that I do now.
That's amazing, because your focus is really around helping people understand their fears and to move beyond them.
Mm-hmm. And I like to say fear is normal. So let's get that piece straight. Fear is normal. It's also one of the most powerful motivating forces in human nature. Because when our fears show up, what do? Do you run? Do you hide? Do you cover it up? Or do you say, there's something here that needs to change, and I'm going to take the next step. I'm going to make some choices. So I like to say being fearless is not the absence of fear, but the choices and decisions we make when fear shows up. And all of our insecurities, our lack of self-esteem, our self-doubt, our feeling unloved, they're all fear-based. Because what is the opposite of fear? It's love. So what do we need to do for ourselves is we need to learn how to love ourselves. Now leadership, one of the first things I say about leadership is know thyself. For many people, they don't take the time to develop that, which is why I became a coach and a speaker and an author. Because I'm teaching you how to become your best self so that you can be your best self for other people. Because it's all a domino effect.
Great. So you work with many people. Tell me about one or two of what you would consider your most significant accomplishments in working with someone. An example, for example.
I think, there's a very good example. Someone who came to me and said, I'm been in the middle of this relationship for 20 odd years, and for the last 10 years we've talked about divorce. I can't quite get it figured out. And so she came to me and I said, okay, let's figure out where you are with this relationship, and taking her step by step through the process that eventually led to the divorce, which was long overdue. And then she said, okay, now I've taken care of this piece of my life. I need to become the top expert in my field. And I said, okay, so great, what does that look like? Because helping people to define their vision is step number one, isn't it? What do you really want? Well, a lot of people come to me and they go, I don't know what I want. Well, let's define what you don't want, and then we get closer to what you do want. So she wanted to be a top expert in her field, and I said, well, how are we going to do that? So I knew she was very good at what she did, but she wasn't creating the right alliances. So I said to her, who in your field is someone you admire and can learn from, but who's not involved in the politics? Very important within the corporate structure. So she identified somebody, and she was in Atlanta, and this person was in Dallas, and I said, you're going to go down there and have lunch with him, and you're going to tell him what it is that you want and what you need. And she was like, I can't do that. I've never done that before. I said, well, now you're going to do this. So I sent her on this mission, and she evolved this alliance with this individual. And within a year, she had authority, she had control, she had a team, and she was making a major impact in her field. Now, 4 years later, she's coming back and saying, I want to create a legacy, so here's where I am. And it's always about confidence and communication skills and building that strategic network, which women are not particularly good at, of being able to ask for what you want and, of course, expect to get it. So I teach people how to do that, so they become stronger individuals and they make their impact. So she's one of my absolute wonderful case studies for making that happen. And I work with a lot of senior management women who've reached a certain plateau in their careers, but they're not making enough of a stride. And it's usually because somewhere along the line they think they don't deserve it, or they're not capable, or they're kind of faking it. One of those things is usually at play. So my job is to teach you, to help you identify your strengths, your weaknesses, which of course our weaknesses are our greatest strengths misapplied. And how do we take that and develop it into being more of who you are? So in other words, help you create or to reach your potential. And not make any more excuses, because most of the time it's BS anyway. That's all excuses are.
Yeah, you're pretty. So Jacqueline, and this will be our last question. A lot of people do coaching work. What is it about you, Jacqueline, that really makes you stand out It makes people just want to keep coming back.
I cut through the BS. It's that simple. I hear your stories, and I'm going to turn around and tell you it's a story. You're buying into this story, and that's not actually what's going on. And so my clients tell me the one thing that they love about me is I cut right through the BS, and I keep them on task. I literally will say to them, you know this is stuff you've got churning around here. Do you really believe this? Because the fundamental question on fear is it true? Do you have empirical evidence that this is in fact what's going to happen or is happening or whatever? Most of the time it's like no. So I cut through the stuff, but I do it with tough love. I do it with gentleness, I do it with compassion, and I do it with deep understanding because I have stood in your shoes. I know what this looks, feels like, smells like, and it's yucky a lot of the time. And we hold ourselves back and we limit who we are in the world and we withhold our gift of who we are in the world. And so I want to get you through this the quickest route possible by helping you recognize what's the truth of who you are without the stuff. So I'm not for everybody, I must admit. I'm not a... No. Come to me with a story, I'll tell you, this real or not real. Let's put an end to that one.
That's simply amazing. Well, Jacqueline, it's a pleasure to work with you. I look forward to continuing to work with you. And I know that you're an amazing teacher and a leader, and you help everyone, all of the people, become more fearless.
Thank you, Ava. It's truly my pleasure to be part of your circle of influence.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes.